Very exciting.
And we're going to go live on your Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention to people that I'm on the Facebook page. I guess they'll find it, won't they? They'll get
if they follow you.
Do my friends get an alert?
Yeah, they get a notification if
so I've got like 5,000 friends. I think that's the most you can have.
Yeah, on a personal account. That's the most you can
on a personal account. So I got all those people, so they're all getting a notice. Mark Hebsy is live.
Okay, and I'm
what
going to
see. What the heck is he going to talk about today? What madness is going on out there? What? I told you this, friend of mine, I didn't tell you this, a friend of mine says to me, if you had a choice to run one person out of town, would it be William Nylander or Steve Simmons? Because Simmons was just getting hammered, right? Like I don't think I've ever seen someone be the brunt of so much constant criticism for what he puts out, right?
Yeah, that's reputation preceding him. Like people already have them in, like in the side of their ledger for guys I don't like. So no matter what,
well, the reason they don't like him is because they don't think he's a fan of the Leafs or the Blue Jays or the Argos or the Raptors. It's that he's trying to find something, trying to poke holes. But what he's really doing is he's not being an extension of the public relations department. He's actually being an independent journalist that asks questions that other people don't want to ask. People are uncomfortable. He uncovers things. He's still railing about Terrence Davis, how Terrence Davis hasn't been charged or anything after that sexual assault in New York. Like he keeps bringing that kind of back. Like why isn't someone covering the story? Why isn't the NBA saying anything? So I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
I do have a problem though when he seems that he's just going after something, not petty, but some way to poke a hole. Like, oh yeah, the Leafs might be the best team in the league, but boy, did they look bad last night. Well, no kidding. Everyone saw that.
Right.
But then he went after Nylander, and all the Nylander fans, hey, now he's right. Nylander is not performing like a $7 million a year player. But it's kind of the way he goes about it, and like you say, it's his reputation. So who should leave town first? Nylander? Who should be run out of town? Nylander or Simmons?
People love to hate a villain. Like I think he's embraced the role on some level. He's embraced the role.
A villain.
Yeah. Like you need a villain, right?
Every town has one, I think. A newspaper columnist, a Krusty's the operative word here. But like Damian Cox could be considered a villain, right?
Yeah, he's crusty.
Jim Hunt was like that. I mean, when I was growing up and when I worked with him, Jim Hunt was like that. He'd look and say, oh, everyone's saying this, but what about that? Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, or everyone's all excited. And he said to me, there's nothing better than a team that loses. A team that wins gets boring after a while. There's only so much you can write. But when a team's losing, and like a team like the Leafs under the Ballard era, every day was a picnic. It was. What did he say today? What's going on today? It's crazy.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've been listening to like my own show, like episodes of my show that talk about Harold Ballard. You're in a bunch of these, by the way, but I've been putting something together that's a little teaser.
You know, I hadn't thought about it much until there's a YouTube story out there from 1983 where I was doing radio. I had the only radio show in Toronto. Excuse me. The Leafs were 21st in the league, dead last. And I started a protest. I said to my listeners that come with placards, Ballard's got to go. His team is terrible. I remember Jim Korn was on that team.
Right.
One of the worst players I ever saw, one of the stupidest players I ever saw, took the dumbest penalties. And he was sort of the poster boy for this team. This was an out-of-control team that didn't know how to win, that didn't care, wouldn't play for their coach. Fans would boo them, throw stuff on the ice. And I think about Leaf fans now. They got a first-place team. They're not acting this. They're not burning tickets or they're not, not showing up or whatever. But they're frustrated because they expect better things every night, every shift. And I'm okay with that because that's the way it's been in Montreal for years. You win all those Stanley Cups, high expectations.
Most definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, I'm gonna go for fun.
That's it. I got nothing else.
No, it's okay. We're ready. We're ready to rock. We're ready to rock. I just need to press a button here. Just bear with me 2 seconds.
Press a button.
Lots of buttons to press. Okay, stand by.
Try to sound a little more enthusiastic. Okay, we've got.
Well, the kids are back at school now. It's crazy. Okay. I'll do this during your opening monologue here. Let's get this show on the road here. People are excited. Okay, let's hear some Hebsy on sports. I'll hit the right music this time. Here we go.
Live from Toronto, it's Hebsy on Sports, episode number 220. I'm your host, Mark Hebscher, but you can call me Hebsy because we're friends, right?
Right.
We're sitting together or shooting the breeze about sports. It's all good. I'm joined by Toronto Mike, and what a time to be a Toronto sports fan. Here's what's on the menu today. Maple Leafs take 5 out of a possible 6 points from Ottawa and now lead the Northern Division by 8 points. 8 points clear of Montreal. One of those, by the way, was a loser point from that 6-5 loss to Ottawa Monday, that debacle. Should we get rid of the loser point in hockey? Because a lot of people made very good points. That was a great example of a team that did not deserve a point. Blew a 5-1 lead, ended up going to overtime. They should have gotten 0 points. And maybe Ottawa should have gotten 3 points. Maybe we should have 3 points for a win and 0 points. Forget no such thing as an overtime loss. A loss is a loss. Maybe bring back the tie. 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. The Raptors, without Kyle Lowry, bounced the Bucks for the second time this week and are starting to look like, dare I say it, a contender for the Eastern Conference title. But one thing, Jack Armstrong has got to stop with the high-pitched squealing on the broadcast. It's like I'm listening to Arnold Ziffel. Like, please, Jack, once in a while, I don't mind it. Get that garbage out of here, but not every single time. Enough. Please. It's getting to be a bit much. The Blue Jays will play their home games this year in Dunedin and maybe Buffalo and maybe Toronto and, I don't know, Hartford. I don't know. You're going to start in Dunedin, 2 homestands there. After that, flip a coin. We don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody. Changes in the sports media as predicted. Mike, wholesale moves expected at the Fan after they dumped their program director.
Wow. We could do a whole show.
PD in the business.
Yeah, we could do a whole show about this, I think.
Maybe we'll do that. Maybe, Mike, maybe we should get an edition of Toronto Mike specifically about sports media.
Yes, guy.
Maybe we should do that.
Happening soon. I think next Friday. I have to check my calendar. I think there's
next
something
Friday?
in the calendar.
Sports Media Roundtable?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Beautiful. All right, so lots of changes in sports media as predicted. The Fan dumped the PD. Joe Buck in trouble with Troy Aikman. Brian Burke in trouble with the Canadian Broadcast Standard Council. Burke and Sportsnet. Here's Burke's gone now. He flew the coop. Sportsnet, though, taking the heat. And yours truly in trouble with some of the listeners. Not all, but some of the listeners.
Always. That's an evergreen.
Right. All that and much more coming up. But first, Mike, a quiz. I heard this question asked on sports television recently. Quote, how important is it for you guys to get a victory tomorrow night? What TV reporter asked that question of a player? How important is it for you guys to get a victory tomorrow night? And it wasn't a multiple choice. It wasn't, how important is it for you guys to get a victory tomorrow night? A, very important. B, not so important. C, kind of important. D, not important at all.
Right.
The answer is always very important.
Right.
Really important. Super important. Stop asking this question. Stop asking, how blank is this? How much fun are you having? How tough is this? How tough is that? How tough a loss was that? How important is it? Come on.
Who is that? Just
the answer is always going to be very important. The answer is never going to be not that important at all. Every loss is an important loss. Every game is an important. We get that. Come on. By the way, the answer to the question, Mike.
Yeah.
2 different television commentators asked that question of 2 different athletes on 2 different broadcasts in 2 different sports.
Are you going to name names? I want to know. Just only. No. I would assume this is a
reporters. These are reporters that have to fire a question at somebody. You got 8 seconds to get your question and go.
Right.
Whether the producer's in your ear saying, "Okay, one more question, wrap it up," or whether it's a press conference where the coach is looking into a camera and all these disembodied voices are going, Coach, how important was that win for you guys tonight? Please, no more. No offense to the Ottawa Senators, but I'm sick and tired of watching them play. Mind you, if it means the Leaf victory every time, then I'm okay with it. Last night, we had shaky Mike Hutchison between the pipes. Hutchinson. And luckily, it was one of those nights where he's not that good, but it's okay. The Leafs won a laugher 7-3. So if you were to say, look, your goalie's going to allow 3 goals, this would have been the game. And in fact, the Senators starting goalie Marcus Hogberg, he was the smartest of them all. He knew it was going to be a long night. So he sustained a lower body injury in the first period with his team down 1-0.
Smart.
Ouch. Limped off the ice. A blessing in disguise because his replacement, Matt Murray, who's just coming back from the injured list, allowed a half dozen goals. And I swear, I saw Zamboni driver David Ayres suiting up in case he was needed.
Almost.
The first thing I thought of was, if this guy goes down too, and they got no goalie, Ayres.
Last I saw him, he was in Jeff Merrick's backyard.
Was he really?
Yeah.
He doing the Zamboni or playing?
He was in net. Like, he's got a nice rink in his backyard, and I don't know what
we've
that
seen
was
enough
for.
of Jeff Merrick's rink.
I know.
By the way, I got a direct message from Jeff Merrick. He wanted everyone to know that the way it came about is the broadcast wanted to do all of that hockey stuff at an arena in Toronto. Moss Park Arena, I think.
Okay.
But what happened was, because of COVID in Toronto and the limited number of people allowed, et cetera, it was just going to be too much of a logistical challenge. So they asked Jeff the week before, hey, can we use your backyard rink? And that's how they set it up. And Jeff tells me that they actually had to adjust the windows, do something with the windows so they could get the cameras in there and get the whole shot in there of the rink and everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was nice. So an update from Jeff.
Good.
He gave us the behind the scenes story as to how that happened. I said to him, wouldn't it have been great though if Ron threw to you and you're there with your kids? That's what Hockey Day in Canada is about. Fathers with their children playing. And he was like, yeah, I know, but they thought it would, let's put Ron there and let him do the stuff there with TJ and Brody. Anyway, so nice enough for Jeff to at least let us know what's going on.
Yeah, shout out to
how
Jeff.
That production came about.
He's a good boy.
How that production came about. He was on this week, and then he wasn't on. Like, he was hosting one night, and then the next night David Amber was hosting, and they were both Sportsnet games. So I don't understand how that works. I kind of like to know.
I would like to know as well. By the way, Hebsy, quick, I don't know if you can do this multitask here, but you didn't retweet the link to the live stream, just so you know. Just so you know. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I was chatting with Merrick myself recently. I was putting him on the Humble and Fred show, and we were chatting about a couple of things, including the fact that Humble and Fred quit radio yesterday. So that's the big news from your buddies Humble and Fred. They're no longer radio, they're podcast only. So they're following they're following suit. They're following your lead here, Hebsy.
Why should they have to work within the confines and restrictions of terrestrial radio with commercial breaks and checking the CRTC? Are you allowed to say that?
Right.
No, you're not, because you're on radio. And when you've got a good show going and you have to think about what you're going to say because of the censors, because of terrestrial radio,
right?
After a while, you just got to, fuck it.
Right. You can't say that, for example, but you can on Hebsy on Sports.
That, and you move to a platform such as we have, where it's not like we're dropping F-bombs every 5 seconds, but you don't have to worry about the things you worried about when you were on terrestrial radio or television, for that matter. That someone's listening going, nope, can't do that. Well, and by the way, we'll talk about the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council and their beef with Brian Burke coming up a little later. It's a big one too. Okay?
I'm ready.
Anyway, so last night the Leafs just pounded Ottawa, pounded them. And Austin Matthews, who I believe is Toronto's answer to Connor McDavid, or is Connor McDavid Edmonton's answer to Austin Matthews? It's getting close. It's sort of this, who's better? Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, who's the greatest of them all? We get into this whole discussion, future GOAT. But is future GOAT going to be Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews?
If I may interject quickly, I don't know any hockey fan who thinks Austin Matthews is better than Connor McDavid.
I didn't say better.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Different type of player, but still highly talented.
For sure.
And at the end of the year, when we're looking at the scoring race, Is it going to be the sniper that's got 65 goals or the guy that's got 125 points? I mean, that's a toss-up there. So it's a good argument. It's a good discussion. And the better Austin Matthews plays, and man, this guy is like money. Money.
Right.
Do you know that if you were to make a bet last night as to whether Austin Matthews would score a goal, just a goal, you would have had to lay 145 to 100. So in other words, you would have to lay $145 to win $100.
Wow.
But if you thought he wouldn't score, you would get plus 100. That's a $100 profit on a $100 bet. So you get your 100 back and you get another 100.
Well, Hebsy, I said this earlier because, I talked to Rick Vive recently and we talked about that 54 goal record he's still got. And we talked about how if this was a regular season with 82 games, Austin's going to break that record, slam dunk, smash it if he stays healthy. But meanwhile, I think it's 56 games, I think, this year. There's still a chance, not that he'll get that record, but there's still a chance he gets 50 goals in a 56-game season.
Well, it's very exciting to look forward to it. But at this particular point, I think to think that he's going to score at this pace is asking a lot.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it's fun. It's always fun, especially early on. Now, talk to me in a month. And if he's still on that pace, even for 50 and 56 games, that would be remarkable, wouldn't it? That'd be like scoring 75 goals in a season. So it's fun to watch.
For sure.
Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the club record is held by Daryl Sittler and Eddie Olchuk. 18 consecutive games with at least 1 point. He's at 15.
Wow.
Not bad.
That's awesome.
And then there's this kid, Mitch Marner. I'm looking at the ages of these guys. These guys are all younger than my sons. They're all. Marner's like 23, Austin's 24 or 22 and 23 or 23 and 20. They're all 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 years old.
Right.
All of them. Even the much maligned William Nylander, who had a goal and an assist last night. Marner had a goal and 3 assists, by the a He's third in the NHL in scoring. Joe Thornton, the ancient one, a goal and 2 assists. And Nylander with 1 and 1. And a friend of mine came up with a great question. If you could run one guy out of town, and by the way, this would have been on like Wednesday after that 6-5 loss in overtime. Mm-hmm. And Simmons with an article that basically blasted Nylander and others, but pretty much Nylander. If you could run one guy out of town, would it be William Nylander or Steve Simmons?
Serious question? Is this a serious question?
Well, no. But it's sort of like, who are you most upset with, or who's bothering you the most, or who could you do without? And since Simmons was the one who suggested, Nylander should be somewhere else, in not so many words.
Right.
Did the Nylander faction, the ones who are they're Leaf fans and supporting Nylander, are they saying, let's run Simmons out of town? Because the stuff directed at Simmons is unbelievable. The vitriol. And I believe that the diehard Leaf fans think that he hates the Leafs and will do anything to poke holes in the Leafs' success.
Do you think that the young modern sports fan is just been groomed to kind of hear cheerleading from those who cover the team, because they're used to basically tuning in Sportsnet and hearing the Sportsnet guys talk about hockey, and they have the big contract of NHL. They're not used to the independent voice like the Hebsys, who are going to call it like it is, whether it's positive or negative.
Well, I think it's somewhat shocking to a lot of people, but at the same time, after you get over that, you go, hey, that's a different opinion. That's not what I've been hearing from all the reporters that cover the team. Not all the reporters, but most of the reporters that cover the team. And Steve Simmons is an exception, along with the other guys at the Sun, because they're independent. And the Star is supposed to be as well, although I think the Star's got a couple of people that are pretty much the extension of the PR department.
Really?
Yeah. Doug Smith is the mouthpiece for the Raptors. He asks all the questions in the press conference. He wrote a book about the Raptors. I think he wrote a book about Nick Nurse. He's embedded. He's an embedded reporter, and he knows that, he's not that his stories aren't interesting, but he's not digging into, the really hardcore stuff that might upset the team, because he's got a relationship with everybody. How can you blast Nick Nurse for, improper rotation in your lineup when you just wrote a book with the guy?
That's a valid point for sure. But
Mike Wilner is at the Star. Look, Mike Wilner has already begun to get back to his let's talk Jays. Let's like it's a talk show. But he can be more critical, I think. I hope he will be. But again, if you've developed relationships with people on not being critical,
But isn't that true of anyone who's got the press? Like, I mean, COVID times notwithstanding, anyone who's got the press pass, there is that. That's you're gonna have that sense of, I don't want to call it loyalty, but you have to see these guys every day.
Well, you're right, but you can go back not that many years where each media outlet had at least one person that just didn't follow the company line, that asked questions and demanded answers. Every media outlet had at least one person, and more actually. You were taken to task. But you're right, this generation, the team controls the message.
Right.
The team's media relations department decides who gets to interview you. And of course, if you're a rights holder, you're front of the line. And it's expected because you're partners with the team. But you're not going to do anything detrimental to ruin the brand. And a good journalist is going to question certain things. They don't care about your brand or how much money you're making for your stockholders, or they're the voice of the fan. They're asking the questions that the fan can't ask. Why is that? How come that? Why didn't that happen? How come you didn't trade for that guy? Why did you put that guy out there? What happened? The other night when the Leafs lost, every question from every reporter was the same. What happened?
Right.
And it's not easy when someone's just lost. But the other thing is, what you really want is you want someone to respond by saying, all right, here's what happened. We sucked. We took our foot off the gas. We allowed them back in the game. Had the crowd been there, had we been playing in front of our crowd, they would have urged us on, and we would have had that support where we probably wouldn't have allowed those goals, but I can't say for sure, blah, blah, blah. Something with some meat to it, not the same, what happened out there? Well, we blew it, and it's our fault we blew it. All right, next interviewee. What happened out there? Or could you tell us what happened? Could you go into detail what happened? What happened on that third goal, that fifth goal? Instead, it's like, oh, geez, they don't want to answer these questions, so let's not ask them. No, ask the tough questions. Ask the uncomfortable questions. How could you allow that to happen to you? And then 2 days later, of course, they beat them. And then last night they beat them again, and it's all forgotten.
Right.
Leafs are in Montreal tomorrow night, 8 points clear of the Habs. Montreal with 3 games in hand. Toronto, Montreal, I would say, back in the day, they play each other 14 times. This year, it's like 10 times.
Wow.
Are you going to get sick of the Habs, or are you going to just love playing the Habs?
No, like anything else, there's a reason, you don't celebrate your birthday every month. Like, it just dilutes the excitement and importance. I mean, you really do need to keep these things kind of special, I think. You're
going to, years from now, you're going to go back and say, remember back in 2021? Remember back during the pandemic when they played in front of empty arenas and
Okay, quick aside, because we mentioned Humble and Fred. Really quick aside is that Humble Howard and I were having a conversation where I was talking about, I haven't seen the Leafs win a cup, and we're doing this. And he's like, I feel sorry for you. He goes, I've seen my Leafs. He goes, my Leafs are Tiger Woods, and I've seen him win X amount of cups. And I was saying, okay, if you had 4 Stanley Cups a year, like, it wouldn't mean as much if you gave away the Stanley Cup 4 times a year. Because essentially, Howard was equating golf majors with Stanley Cups. But Stanley Cups, there's one champion every year, and that's what keeps it, important and valuable.
Well, you've opened up a thing, who's the greatest of all time, and how do you compare a tennis player that gets 4 shots at a major every year with a Stanley Cup winner who gets 1 shot?
That's what
and
I'm
it's
saying.
A team
it's
sport versus an individual sport.
Right.
You'll never get the right answer. Once Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl, all it did was just accelerated the conversation. Who's the GOAT? Is it Jordan? Is it Bill Russell because he won 11 titles? Is it Henri Richard because he played on 11 Stanley Cup winners?
Ken Dryden.
Ken Dryden, if you go by goalies. I mean, is it Jack Nicklaus? Is it Tiger Woods? Is it Sam Snead? Go on and on. Is it Margaret Court because Serena's one away from her record, and her record is kind of, because when it was considered to be a major back in those days, it was like, a club tournament.
Right.
Didn't attract the best players. So there's always a caveat.
There's my little tangent. Let's get back to this this Maple Leaf action here.
Okay, so the Leafs lose on Monday. They get a point for losing. They lose 6-5. They get a point. So first thing I said was, they still got a point. It could have been worse. They could have gone none, which they deserve to get none. And that prompted a discussion again as to the loser point in hockey being the dumbest rule in sports. And you know what? It is. It's dumb. You lost. This OT loss for a point, get rid of it. It's done. No way did the Leafs deserve a single point on Monday. And if it was up to me, I would have taken a point away from them in the standings. I think if you blow a 4-goal lead, you should have points taken away. Can you do that? You had 28 points. No. That was horrible. We'd take one away from you.
If I may have.
Anyway, here's my suggestion.
Okay, go ahead.
The league should award 3 points to the winning team and none to the losers. If you're going to go to overtime, do it this way. If you win in regulation, 3 points, none to the loser. If you go to overtime, be it a 3-on-3 or whatever it is for 5 minutes, and still nobody scores, the game goes into the books as a tie. Each team gets 1. If a team wins in overtime, they get 2 points, and the losing team gets none.
Okay, so there's an incentive to win in the regulation.
Loser never gets a point. You get no points at all. No, but if you win in regulation, you get 3, and if you win in overtime, you get 2. And if after the overtime, it goes into the books as a tie.
Hebsy,
which I don't think you would see too many ties. I think you would see teams going for that 3 points, going for it in regulation. That's 3 points. We need those 3 points. We're 6 back of the leaders. We get 3 here and 3 there. Boom. And that to me is the excitement of like when I watch soccer. Team reels off 3 wins in a row. That's 9 points.
Right.
That's 9 points, baby. It's like that when they introduced the 3-point shot in basketball. Suddenly, everyone, not suddenly actually, at first people weren't taking that many 3-point shots. They weren't familiar. But after a while, it was like, why would I fire up a 2 when I can get a 3? Anyway, what do you think of this loser point? Should we get rid of it?
Well, shout out to Anthony Petrucci, who's watching live and loves what you just said. He says, you're right again. I guess he thinks you're right often. What's wrong with you, Anthony? Anyway, he says, no loser point. He says 3 points. So I'm sold as well. Let's get rid of the loser point. I liked your model there. It made sense. I'm just going to say you made the statement a couple of times that the Leafs didn't deserve a point because they blew a 5-1 lead. I would argue that they deserve a point for building they were up by 4. It was 5-1. They deserve a point for building up the 5-1 lead. Sure, they coughed it up, but they deserve, I'm just saying, you have to be up 5-1 to blow it.
The Raptors don't deserve if they had a 22-point lead and lose the game in overtime. They don't deserve any, well, way to go, you got the game to overtime. Not at all. I like the idea of a game ending in regulation. I really do. You're playing 60 frickin' minutes. Play 60 minutes for 3 points. Don't play 60 minutes to defend a 1-1 tie, and then now you've got your point. And you know what's going to happen, Mike? One day, a team is going to need 1 point to win their division. 1 point.
Right.
And they're going to play a defending type game, play for the tie, and as soon as they get into overtime, even if they lose in overtime, not going to matter. The team that wins the game in overtime is going to score, and they're going to go like this, yeah! And the team that just got the 1 point, they're going to also go, yeah, we're in the playoffs.
So
it'll happen.
And a good point made by Dr. Hockey on your YouTube page, which is that he doesn't even watch the shootout anymore because he says it's not real hockey. So that's just skills competition garbage. I'm thinking of TJ Oshie in the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like the
other thing is you don't get credit. I don't believe you don't get credit for a goal if you score it in the shootout.
No, you don't. Not in the stats.
And so, no, you don't get a credit in the stats. So you're like, you could be the greatest shootout player in the league. Man, you'd have 20 shootout goals, okay? I had 70 goals last year. No, you didn't. You had 50. No, but I had 20 more in the shootout. How many? See, I think if you score the deciding winning goal in the shootout, maybe you consider that person gets credit for that goal. But that's actually it's not even a team goal.
Right.
Or is it? It's considered goals for. Of course it is. But it's a team goal.
Hebsy, you sold me, man. Who do we have to talk to? Because let's get rid of the loser point. You're right. People are, sitting on these.
Start our own league.
A league of our own. I like that.
But I like the 3 points for a win, like in soccer. I also like the idea of, since there's a second division, relegation. I like this idea. Take the 3 worst teams in the NHL, send them down to the AHL, and bring up the top 3 teams from the AHL.
As you often say to me, do, re, mi.
You're right. All right, let's talk about the Raptors, who were missing Kyle Lowry last night. It was his ankle? No, it was his thumb. Who knew? He's hurt. But they weren't worried at all. In fact, they were supremely confident. And I thought, why would you be confident when you don't have the great Kyle Lowry in the lineup? And then I realized that in their last 14 games they've played without Lowry, The Raptors are 14-0.
What?
Averaging 116 points a game without Kyle Lowry, which leads you to believe that, hey, you could trade Kyle. I mean, if you were in a position where you thought you could make a run for the championship, would you trade Kyle Lowry if you're that good without him? Or would you say, we got 35-year-old Kyle Lowry. He's still an effective player. He's a great player at times. We're as good as any team in the East. Could you think that way, Mike?
I need to dig deeper into this. Like this 14-0 run without Lowry surprises me, but is he like strategically skipping games against weaker opponents? Like that doesn't make sense.
He's hurt. He's banged up. You see the type of game he plays.
But 14-0 without Lowry doesn't pass the sniff test. Like how do you explain it? They just play a more team game. Like Lowry's a team player.
What they're doing is whoever his replacement is. Last night it was Bembry.
Wow.
Bembry.
It's probably the Van Vliet factor.
Vliet,
like when
Powell,
right.
They were teeny little team yesterday.
Right.
Teeny little Pascal Siakam, little OG Anunoby,
right.
Little teeny Fred Van Vliet, and little teeny Bembry.
Yeah.
What's his first name? I can't think of it. I should know what Bembry's first name is. Starts with a D. D'Angelo Bembry?
D'Angelo's from it's DeAndre. Like
DeAndre, sorry. I apologize. But I mean, you're looking at the guy going, hey, 95, isn't that the Raptor mascot? No, it's Bembry. He's starting.
Right.
Bembry, Van Vliet, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Norm Powell, where you're starting five. Powell had 29 points in 30 minutes. Pascal Siakam, 27 points, 6 boards, 5 helpers. OG, despite shooting poorly, I think he was like 0 for 7 from 3, still made like key fourth quarter shots down low, some really athletic plays as the Raptors held on to their double-digit lead in the fourth and won it by a score of 110-96. And now the Raptors are sixth in the conference with a record of 14-15 and 5 games back of first-place Philadelphia. Mike, 5 back.
Wow.
Pretty good, eh?
So what do you do with Lowry? Like, I mean, we've often talked about how his best years are behind him. If you could get something for him, like now is the time, right?
Look, I honestly think the Raptors could go far in the playoffs. I think you go with your best team.
Well, what's far? Like we might get to the second round. This team doesn't make the conference final, does it?
Why not?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, this team I've been watching doesn't look.
Tell me which team does.
Okay,
Come on, Philadelphia? They're not that good.
Okay.
Not Milwaukee. Raps just beat them twice. Brooklyn? Maybe.
F Brooklyn. So you're saying you need Lowry's leadership for the playoffs. You need this veteran leadership.
You've got to be a better team with Lowry in there. But if, God forbid, he has to sit, you got a pretty good lineup.
We had a good record.
They beat a good team. Milwaukee's although they're slumping, they're Milwaukee. Do
you remember the Raps record without Kawhi Leonard was excellent as well? But we never once talked about we don't need Kawhi, and then we needed Kawhi for the playoff run. So Lowry might be a similar situation.
Yes and no. With Kawhi, I mean, look, they had enough depth, and it appears to me that they do have enough depth now where Lowry can sit out the game. And Nick Nurse can rotate 10 guys in there. Well, 8 for sure, and then a couple of other ones when you have a big lead. And it's different guys from last year. There's no Gasol. There's no Ibaka. Right? You've got Bembry. There's no Hollins Jefferson. It's a real turnover. But at the same time, it's nice to see these guys out there, just to see them work together in unison. And that to me makes it a team game. We're not dependent on one guy. If Pascal has a bad game, other guys can pick up. They weren't earlier this year, but they are now. And Pascal's picked up his game. It's a very, very exciting team to watch.
Unbelievable. We're in 6th place right now because we're still under 500.
Well, it's not unbelievable because the East is terrible. That's why I say we've got as good a chance as anyone else. And these guys have been there before.
True that.
Tonight, though, big test. On to Minnesota for a rematch against the Timberwolves, the team they choked and gagged against on Monday and lost. We're embarrassed by the Timberwolves. So this is revenge, Mike. Revenge. I think the Raptors are just finding their stride, and even though there's some issues in the middle, I like them. I like it. I think they're playing good, solid team basketball, and they're playing good defensive basketball. There was a time yesterday where Milwaukee came back and they were down by a lot, and they came back to within like 10. And it was like, uh-oh. And I'm saying to my friend, look, this is a game of runs. Milwaukee had their run. And then sure enough, the Raptors just kind of went from 10 to back to 15 or whatever it was and ended up winning 110-96. Anyway, here's my issue, Mike. Jack Armstrong.
Hello.
I like Jack. He really knows his stuff. He's a great character. He knows everything about the Raptors. I even liked him when he coached at Canisius in Buffalo. But I think he's becoming a bit of a parody of himself. The commercials, he's on some TV commercials. Hello! And I don't mind it occasionally, but I don't like it during the course of the game. Matt's trying to read some stats or he's got some thought going or he's throwing a commercial and Jack is just nattering on. So I consider Jack Armstrong now, when he does that, to sound like nails on the blackboard.
Hebsy, man, did you strategically choose that expression to describe Jack Armstrong?
That is how I feel when I hear him do those things. Like I said, if somebody blocks a shot, I'm okay with, get that garbage out of here. But not with the high pitch on every single promotion that he's doing or whatever. Not easy.
Just this week,
no,
Hebsy.
To take it down a bit.
Yeah.
Take it down a bit. It's okay. We still know you're lovable, Jack Armstrong. We get all of that. You don't have to do that stuff.
Just this week, the Premier of Ontario used that exact same expression, nails on a chalkboard, to describe the leader of the opposition, who is a woman, Andrea Horwath. And there was great criticism because they said that what I saw from many commentators was, you never hear that expression with regards to a man. It's always a woman when you use the expression nails on a chalkboard, and it was deemed misogynist.
Really?
Yep.
Is it?
Well, you just use it right now.
Anybody that's got a high-pitched, shrill, cracking voice that just makes you go, whoa.
Well, you just used it for Jack Armstrong. So there you go. It can be it's been used. And you're not strategically using that because of Doug. You're legitimately using that because that's how you describe what it sounds like.
Because the expression makes it, think about it. Nails on a chalkboard are a high-pitched squeal that just makes you suck your sphincter in. Like, ooh.
Oh.
It's a terrible sound. Horrible sound.
Right. Okay. When I get excited, I sound like that. So I am also.
Yeah, but you don't get excited every single play
That's right.
during a basketball game.
Oh, no, you're right. I think you're right. He's got the catchphrases and they become
we know it and I love it. But if you use it too much,
you're right.
It gets to be.
It's got to bring it down a notch or save it for like game 7 of the conference final or something.
Right.
Just
save it for key moments. But if you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Like Joe Bowen, every call on a Leaf goal, it seems he adds the Holy Mackinac.
Right.
Because it's your thing. Now, I get it. You call home runs, it's going, gone. Bye, birdie. Up, and away. Whatever your, expression is on a home run. I get that. But after a while, it's like, okay, you're becoming kind of a parody of yourself because you feel as if you have to say your little catchphrase all the time. And Jack Armstrong has got these catchphrases that he uses a lot and sometimes inappropriately.
And you and I were both critical of Buck Martinez for leaning too hard on that cringy, get out of here, ball, get out.
Get up.
Shout out real quick. Go ahead.
It seems forced. I think if it happens naturally, fine. But if you have to think about what you're going to say in the moment, it ruins it.
I want to just say hello to The Great Awakening, who is absolutely loving the fact you're live on your YouTube page now. So if anyone's listening to the podcast, Hebsy, we're live every Friday morning at 9:20 a.m. on Hebsy's YouTube page. And then also a quick shout out to Dale Cadeau, who's been a supporter. Yeah, we're also live on Facebook too.
And shout out to who?
Dale Cadeau, who's been listening since episode 1. So he's a
big fan,
big time fan since day 1.
Is he related to Dave Cadeau?
Well,
the program director.
Is it time for the segue? Because that would be too naturally perfect. But because we will talk about Dave Cadeau, I do not believe he's related. I think I asked him once.
All right, let's talk about the Blue Jays, who will be fun to watch this year. and in several different locations, coming to a city near you, I'm told. The team confirmed that they will begin the season in Dunedin, Florida, but by their third homestand in May, they could move to Buffalo. And if that's the case, the AAA Bisons will have to move somewhere else because you can't cross-pollinate two different baseball teams, dugouts, clubhouses, stuff like that. And then from there, fingers crossed, who knows, says Mark Shapiro, it's possible they could play some games in Toronto later this summer.
That's wishful thinking.
Limited number of fans. Never say never. What if they have the Olympics in Tokyo? What if everybody's vaccinated? Who knows? Fingers crossed anyway. So Toronto, the traveling baseball show. Traveling Motor Kings, Bingo Long, and the Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings. The Jays have not played a home game in Toronto since the year of the small potato. If I'm not mistaken, some of these guys have never even been to Toronto.
Right.
They've never been to Toronto. They don't know what Toronto even looks like.
Never been to the country, maybe.
Maybe. Meanwhile, manager Charlie Montoya reports from spring training in Dunedin that many of his players are practicing at several positions. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who came up as a shortstop, has been taking grounders at third and first base. His brother, Yuri, plays first base for Houston.
Right.
Same goes for Vladdy Jr., taking grounders at third, taking grounders at first. Teoscar Hernandez has been playing right field and left field. Because if Lourdes is going to be playing somewhere else, then there'll be an opening in left field. George Springer has been playing center field and right field. Randall Grichuk is playing right field and center field. Marcus Semien has been playing at second base and shortstop. And Kevin Biggio has been playing everywhere except pitcher. So versatility is the key on this squad. Because on any given day, you could have Rowdy Tellez or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Lourdes Gurriel at first. You could have Marcus Semien or Kevin Biggio at second. You could have Bo Bichette at short. You could have Semien at short. You could have Lourdes at third. You could have Guerrero at third. You could have Biggio at third, but not Semien at third. I'm told Semien will not get any reps at third base.
Versatile.
Pitching, that's another story. Because
Right.
you got Hyunrin Jin Ryu.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's a bunch of question marks.
Yeah, we invested heavily in Mr. Springer there. We do need another top of the rotation guy.
But we don't know what Montoya has in mind. Is this
Is
going
he
to be an
gonna pitch?
opener followed by a 5-inning middle reliever? Excuse me.
And who
Is it
would
going
make
to
that call
be-
anyway? It would be coming
What's
from that call would come from upstairs anyways, right? Like this is like I feel like Montoya is just the executor. He's not the strategist.
The executor. I hope he has more than that. I don't think every call is coming from the front office. However, it's obvious that the front office wants to try different players in different positions. So I don't have a problem with that. If you're trying to come up with an ideal lineup, you want versatility, especially if there's injuries. And the pitching staff, well, what can you do? Wait for Taijuan Walker. Everybody's all excited. Was he that great last year? James Paxton ended up signing elsewhere.
Right.
I don't know. But I do know this. They're going to score a lot of runs, and they're going to be a very exciting team. I'm looking at that batting order. Adding Springer to that order.
The more I think about it, what a damn shame. I know this pandemic has fucked up everything, but damn, it would be great to, this summer, you and I go into the ballpark to watch this team. It just sucks that we have one more summer without the live baseball.
I miss it.
We lost 2 summers. You
that.
don't have a long life. You think 2 summers were just ripped away from us, and let's hope it's only 2.
What if they have a fabulous team and we can't, like last year they were pretty good. Nice surprise. We can't even watch them live.
Right.
Will they open the borders? If they're in Buffalo, will they open the borders? Would you go to the States to go to Buffalo to watch your Toronto Blue Jays play at Salem Field?
Well, they're not going to open the borders until it's going to be a while, right? Like I don't think this summer. I don't think it's this summer. No.
Oh. That's your Blue Jay story. Fernando Tatis Jr. of the San Diego Padres has signed a 14-year, $340 million contract extension. The 22-year-old has played 143 major league games. He's not arbitration eligible till next year. Doesn't become a free agent until 2025. So to give this kid $340 million is crazy. I know he's good, Mike, but 14 years? Wow. That's a long time. And remember, 2 years ago, the Padres signed Manny Machado for over $300 million for 10 years. That's a lot of scratch. This kid's 22.
Yeah. Those deals,
that's a lot of money.
They baffle my mind, those deals. Like they're just these huge long-term big money deals like that. They're just crazy.
And the market has gone, in some ways has gone completely crazy and others hasn't. Not as much for pitching, except certain pitchers. But look at what happened when the Dodgers signed Mookie Betts last year. 12 years, $365 million. That's your benchmark there. That's Mookie Betts. It's an MVP. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. has got to win 2 MVP awards in his career to justify $340 million. And the Padres have got to win a World Series, and their number one rivals are the Dodgers, who've got Mookie Betts and all these other great players. Trevor Bauer now.
Right.
Let's add to that pitching staff. Holy cow. Imagine being a Padres fan. Anyway.
Midtown Gord wants you to know that Walker signed with the Mets, because you mentioned.
Did Taiwan Walker sign with the Mets?
Right.
Just goes to show you. The Mets, what an organization that is. Holy cow. Got some problems, don't they?
Right.
On our last podcast, Mike, I suggested there was going to be changes at the Fan 590 in Toronto.
Yes.
And I was right when they fired their program director, Dave Cadeau, the other day. Here's the story. He showed up for work, opened up his office door, waited inside. Waiting inside were 2 people. So you open up your office door, surprise! There's 2 people sitting there. They're not smiling.
You know what that's for.
After a 10-minute conversation, Cadeau was escorted out of the building, presumably with a big envelope in his hand. Reaction from coworkers was mixed. The people Cadeau hired are very concerned now because whenever there are changes to management, the new management team wants to bring in their own people, not from the previous regime. Am I right?
Yeah, that does typically happen, yes.
So those people are worried. Everyone's walking on eggshells. The climate there is toxic at the Fan.
So many questions.
Toxic.
So many
and
questions.
That has to be changed. Now, there is an interim PD in place, I'm told. He's not from the Rogers organization, from outside the organization. And they've posted the program director's job at Rogers, so there will likely be several applications for that position in-house. A little bird tells me that someone possibly from the television side, from Rogers' television side, production side, programming side, might have an inside track on this job at the Fan. Because it's not an easy job. You're trying to program a radio station. AM radio is in trouble. You're in the middle of a pandemic where listener habits have completely changed. People are not commuting the way they were. And now you've got to find a way to generate revenue on a platform that has not been generating revenue recently. I saw some of the ad rates. I'm kind of surprised at how low they are, because your top 2 ratings periods in radio are morning drive and afternoon drive.
Right.
You've got to have a strong morning show. You must have a strong. That's where you generate most of the revenue. And then after that, it's your afternoon drive, and then you're not generating much from others. Your play-by-play, live play-by-play is probably a loss leader because you're committed to those 80 games or 160 games or whatever. Although Rogers does have all Jays games, but they do split up their Raptors and Leafs packages.
Right.
Because they could not possibly air them all. And of course, TSN has some of them as well. And that's why on radio, I never know half the time. If I happen to be in the car or whatever, is it on 590? Is it on 1050?
Well, Bell Media
News?
Has 37.5% ownership in MLSE, whereas the Jays are all Rogers. So, yeah.
Correct. So Greg Sansoni is the president. I guess he's in charge of all the programming on the Fan and other sports programming. He's going to make the right decision. He's a smart guy. He understands radio.
Well, you worked with him for years, right?
I did, yeah.
So you know.
And he understands. He was an intern at the Fan many years ago. And I think that if he's going to make changes, and he He is going to not just throw people together. He's going to ensure that there's chemistry, because that is the key. You cannot just take that person, that person, that person, say, all right, you guys are a team. You can't do it.
Right.
Those people have to be sent away for a weekend or a week somewhere. Work on bits, work on stuff, get to know each other. And if they don't have that chemistry, you can't put them on the air and hope that chemistry develops.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Here's a rumor I heard.
Okay, let's
New
hear it.
morning show on the Fan. Possibility. This has been thrown out there. Tim McAuliffe, Natasha Stanishevsky, Dan O'Toole.
Whoa. Wow.
3 big names, 3 recognizable names, 3 people who you know what they look like. Instant credibility from television.
Yes.
Nice mixture. What do you think?
Okay.
Would you listen?
I have so many questions here. Would I listen? I have not listened to a Fan 590 morning show since 2011, I think or is it 13?
But would you listen if the people that were on that show were compelling, entertaining? You didn't want to miss it.
This is this is a lifestyle thing for me where I put on a little Metro Morning in the kitchen when I'm getting the kids breakfast and stuff, but that's it for me. I'm just a lifestyle thing. I don't.
Okay.
But
forget it. I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask you because you don't listen to the Fan. I'm going to ask
I listen to
all of
Hebsy
our
on
viewers
sports.
and listeners. Would you listen to a morning show? All right. It doesn't matter if it was the Fan or on TSN.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no difference. Would you listen to the morning show if it was Tim McAuliffe, Dan O'Toole, Natasha Stanishevsky?
Okay, question. So firstly, 2 of those names are not currently on the Rogers roster, if you will.
That's
so
right.
Tim is under he works for Rogers.
Yep.
Dan and Natasha just got let go from TSN.
Correct.
So from my understanding is like none of these AM stations are interested in adding payroll. Like they seem, I mean, there's a lot of evidence from the TSN radio in other markets disappearing that they're slashing their budgets on AM radio. I think it would be expensive to add a Dan O'Toole and a Natasha Stanishevsky to your morning show.
See, I don't. And here's why.
Tell
Both
me.
of them are out of work. If their contracts had ended at TSN and they weren't renewed, they're not owed any money. Right? If we're not renewing your contract, they got their notice. That's it, right? If you had a 3-year contract, a 1-year contract, whatever it was,
right?
When your contract is up, if it's not renewed, unless you had an option to be paid for a year, you're available. You're a free agent.
Sure.
Now you're out of work, and someone says, "Look, I can give you a job. We'd love to have you, but it's going to be for half what you were making on television."
But another question:
Are you telling me that you would say no? I'm waiting around for a TV job that pays me what I got before, or are you going to say, "You know what? That sounds like an exciting opportunity. It sounds like it's got room for growth. Yeah, I'll take it, and let's develop it into a great show."
Now, Hebsy, Tim on Tim and Sid, and Dan and Jay, or Jay and Dan, if you will, they're both the straight men. You know what I mean? Like you took the wacky guy, which is Sid Sixero and
you're
Jay
talking
Onrait.
about television versus radio. This is
okay.
different.
I'm just asking the questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, but you don't listen. You haven't listened to a Fan morning show since 2011.
Yeah, Greg Brady was on the show.
So who am I
last time
talking to here?
But I know these personalities.
But you never heard. You don't listen to Scott MacArthur and Mike Zigomanis.
No, I didn't.
You didn't listen to them when they had Ashley Docking as well.
No.
You didn't listen to Ashley Docking and Greg Brady. Correct. You didn't listen to Greg Brady and Elliot Price. Correct. You didn't listen to Greg Brady and Andrew Walker.
I did listen to some of them.
You didn't listen to Greg Brady and Jim Lang.
A little bit.
You didn't listen to Dean Blundell and whoever his cast of characters. So you haven't been listening to the Fans' morning shows.
Okay.
To know what a good morning show sounds like. And just because you've got quote unquote 2 straight people, or 3 if you include Natasha, who's to say that the 3 of them wouldn't make for an engaging, interesting, entertaining, informative morning show? Would you listen?
I think it would be, those are three big names in the market, and I think the sports media connoisseur would enjoy hearing a show of those 3 people.
I do as well. Anyway.
No,
just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I know.
Just throwing it out there.
I have a question though,
Mike, too many personalities, radio personalities in the city,
are
not good enough They don't have the broadcasting chops. They don't have the knowledge of the Toronto sports scene for many years because they're not from here. They don't know the pain of Leaf fans the way they think they know them. And so you're speaking for the sports fans of Toronto. These are Toronto radio stations.
Mhm.
Now, I don't care about the Winnipeg Jets on TSN radio. I don't care when they're talking. I care about the Toronto teams. Local sports teams deserve better treatment.
That's what you're
So I
here
watched
for.
all the Leaf games this week on TV.
Okay.
Speaking of local teams.
Okay.
And I'm a bit confused because I know I'm getting Gord Miller and Ray Ferraro on the TSN broadcast, which was Monday night. But then the Sportsnet show on Sportsnet opening on Wednesday, showed all the highlights from the 6-5 debacle. But instead of using Gord Miller's voice for play-by-play, they went and got, because it's Sportsnet, it's Rogers, they went and got the audio and dropped the audio of Joe Bowen's calls in on the video of the goals, on all 11 goals. So it takes a bit of work, right? It's like, we're not going to give TSN the credit.
Right.
We're not going to put Gord Miller's voice in our opening. We're going to go get the radio voice of it. And that's a lot of work to do there. It's weird. And then they have a whole different crew. So Wednesday, it's like, welcome to Wednesday Night Hockey, Leaf Hockey. It's Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson. That's a given. And here's the lineup tonight. Hi, everybody. Was it Jeff Merrick hosting. I believe it was Kyle Bukakis was the rinkside reporter. I didn't see Anson Carter, but I saw Jennifer Botterill instead of Cassie Campbell. And I didn't see Kevin Bieksa, but I saw Anthony Stewart and Elliot Friedman, they're always on. So, all right. And then the next night, it's not Jeff Merrick. He's out in his rink somewhere. It's David Amber hosting. And where's Kyle Bukakis? No, it's Sean McKenzie doing the rinkside reporting and Chris Johnston as the insider. I don't know if Chris was on the night before. So it's like they looked and said, okay, we got back-to-back games. Totally different lineup for both games, except for Anthony Stewart, Elliot Friedman, Chris Cuthbert, and Craig Simpson, if I'm not mistaken. I think the rest, it was like, okay, you're in, you're out. You're in, you're out. Merrick, you go home. You're there. Okay. Jennifer Botterill, thanks for coming out. We don't. Chris Johnson, you're in. It's the inside. Come on.
They're like goalies.
TSN, I know what I'm getting on TSN. I can tell you, James Duthie, right? I'm getting Dave Poulin. I'm getting Jeff O'Neill. I'm getting the insiders. I'm getting Pierre LeBrun. I'm getting Darren Drager. I know who I'm getting. I'm getting Ray Ferraro and Gordon Miller. I know what I'm getting.
You want consistency.
I want consistency.
Now, is that because one is a regional and one is a national game? Is that the difference there?
But why should I care? I'm in Toronto. I'm in Ontario. I'm watching Sportsnet Ontario. Give me what I'm used to.
Right.
Right. I got Steve Dangle screaming at me with those. What do you call those edits? Those camera edits?
Jump
Match
cuts.
edits.
They're called jump cuts. I really dislike the jump cuts.
Which your first day in editing school.
It's for kids.
Please, no jump cuts.
Right.
Don't do it. Do a dissolve. Do a fade.
It's not for us,
a white flash. But please, no jump cuts. So I got Steve Dangle, who look on YouTube. I've never met him before. On YouTube, he's a superstar. He's great. I used to always tune in. And what's he ranting about today?
Right.
Oh, he's right. He's just ranting like a Leaf fan. But it doesn't work on the telecasts. It's almost like they sort of mock him. Like he does his rant about the Leafs and all that, and with jump cuts. And then they come back to the desk, and the guys on the desk kind of go, ooh, like, okay, Steve. Like he's kooky, crazy, nutty, madcap, wacko, zany. He should be on the Hebsy Awards.
He's the token millennial for the the millennials perspective, I suppose. I will say though, his shtick is not for me. When I had him over on Toronto Mike, my son was really into his stuff on YouTube, and I just simply didn't care for it. Like I really think it's a generational thing. Yeah. Like I think the kids seem to like Dangle's thing.
All right. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, agreed.
But again, you're trying to draw fans. You got a half-hour pregame show. Remember, hockey is the only sport that has 2 intermissions.
Right.
Okay? Halftime at football, no problem. Baseball, minute and a half, 2 minutes between innings. Basketball, halftime. Hockey used to have halftime. You know that. Hockey used to play 2 periods.
But how long ago was that? 7-on-7. How long ago was that?
Halftime. Oh, before
1800s?
1920.
Okay. When you were just a
Right?
kid. You were just a kid.
But hockey has 2 built-in intermissions. That means 2 opportunities for you to get more programming in there, to fill programming. It used to be between periods interviews. I used to do 5-minute between period interviews when I was at Global. 5 minutes with a guy. He's sweating, man. Yeah. Sweat coming off his nose. He stinks. His hair is all matted. He doesn't know what hit him. He got whacked with a couple of body checks, took a puck in the head. And I got to talk with this guy for 5 minutes. I got to ask intelligent questions for 5 minutes. But I can't talk about anything besides hockey. You can't get into his family stuff that much. He's like, yeah, we're going to give it 100%. And then in your ear, the producer's going, okay, Mark, you got 4 more minutes. What the hell am I going to ask this guy? What am I going to ask this guy?
That is a long time.
4-word answers.
Oh, quick.
And it was always
whoever
the home team was, their interviewee was in the first intermission always. And then the visiting team's interviewee was in the second intermission. And so you'd ask the PR department, can we get so-and-so in the first?
Can I get Wayne Gretzky? I've seen the footage.
We get Gretzky. Okay. And it's great. So now my producers, this is great. We got Gretzky. Fabulous. You got 5 minutes. Wow. Well, guess what? After a minute and a half, I got nothing. I got nothing else. I got nothing else.
Ask him about his tennis game. Hey, Bob Willett just wants you. He's a good friend of Jeff Merrick's as well, and he just wants you to know Merrick's basically locked in to host every Wednesday night for the rest of the season. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's a Wednesday night host.
So Jeff's got the Wednesday games, and Amber's got the Thursday games and the Saturday games.
Right. Yeah, that seems to be. So definitely Merrick on the Wednesday. Yeah.
So Merrick works Wednesdays. He's got to be doing other stuff during the week. He's getting a paycheck. He can't be just 1 day a week that he's working.
It's not a bad
game. Oh, I know. He does 31 Thoughts with Friedman. He does the podcast.
He does do that, yes.
That's not a bad podcast. It's not as good as this one.
Not as good as that. He's got to work on his outdoor rink. Like, that takes a lot of time to keep it pristine.
If you're working there, shouldn't you be working not the equivalent of a 40-hour week, but if you're on staff or you're salaried, aren't you putting in...
Maybe he does those, he calls...
a certain number of days a week?
He does,
he's on the air Wednesdays. He's hosting the Wednesday games, but he's got to be working the other days of the week, right? Doing production, something.
He's got a good deal there. He's got a good deal. Oh, and I got to shout out Mike Cooper.
Ask Willett. Ask him. Okay, does he work other days besides Wednesdays? Find out.
I'll ask him here, but I do want to shout out Mike Cooper is enjoying the show on YouTube as well. I don't know if it's the Mike Cooper or just another Mike Cooper, but regardless, it's
the Mike Cooper.
Mike Cooper from 1050 Chum.
Geez, Mike Cooper, that's a pretty uncommon name, Mike. I don't think I've heard any Mike Coopers.
Oh, there's a Mike Smith here?
Mike Smith, the same Mike Smith. All right. Let's go to tennis now. No Serena, no Rafa. Roger Federer's hurt. No Bianca at the Australian Open. In fact, Bianca Andreescu lost in the semifinals of another tournament down there after losing in the second round of the Aussie Open earlier. So she has not had a good week at all. But she's still rusty. And that's understandable. She made a lot of unforced errors, still hitting the ball hard. Bianca will be fine as long as she stays healthy. That's the caveat. But you got to be match ready if you want to take on the top players. You got to take on players that have been playing other top players in fine form, fine fettle. What you got to have. The women's final goes later tonight. Number 3, Naomi Osaka, taking on the American number 22 seed Jen Brady. Osaka has been unstoppable in Melbourne. She dispatched Serena in the semis in straight sets, really pounded her. And then Serena, when she walked off, waved in such a manner that people thought, this could be her last ever appearance at the Rod Laver Arena at the Australian Open. And then she broke down and cried when a reporter asked a fairly innocent question and left the press tent. Very emotional.
Wow.
And she's trying to win her 24th major championship, which would tie her with Margaret Court.
Great name for
many of those championships were the Australian Open back when nobody went to the Australian Open. Like a little club tournament.
It's hard to get
all Australians back in the day. So people are kind of looking going, yeah, it's 24 major championships, but it's not the same. You're always going to have that argument.
It wasn't best on best. Quick update from Bob Willett. He says Jeff Merrick also does Hockey Central at noon, a day or two on the radio. And he does some ringsides.
Who normally does Hockey Central at noon? He's like a fill-in host, or he hosts it once a week?
I don't know. Bob says
What's
a
with
day
the
or two.
rotating host thing? Why can't they have the same host hosting Hockey Central at noon 5 days a week, the same host on Sportsnet's Leaf Hockey Like, I don't get it. Either they have too many people working there. All right, Merrick, you do Wednesdays. Amber, your Thursdays. Amber,
Don't
you do
give
Saturdays
Rogers
with Ron
idea.
McLean.
They'll cut
Ron
costs.
McLean, Ron, you and Tara Sloan do Sundays.
Right.
No Sundays this year, but you're going to be on Saturdays, both of you, to promote Rogers Hometown Hockey, which we're not doing on Sundays. Now you, and the other thing is, what happened to, where's Scott Russell and Scott Oak and all the CBC guys? I haven't seen them. I know that Houston's not traveling because of COVID. Like, what's going on? I need an update. Damn it.
Okay, we got to find out. Call your buddy Greg Sanzoni. He'd know.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be taking my call. Back to the Aussie Open. The men's final goes tomorrow night. Novak Djokovic, the top seed, battles Daniil Medvedev in the final. Medvedev knocked off Stefanos Tsitsipas in the semis after Tsitsipas KO'd Rafael Nadal in the quarterfinals. Rafa led 2-0. And then Tsitsipas won the last 3 sets to take the 5-setter. Thrilling tennis. And Djokovic, even though he's the number 1 seed and should win, he has struggled a bit here. He went 5 sets with Taylor Fritz in the 3rd round. He went 4 sets with Milos Raonic in the 4th round. And then he went 4 sets with Sasha Zverev in the quarters before sweeping the unseeded Russian Karatsev in the semis. And Karatsev was the guy who knocked off Felix Auger-Aliassime. And we were like, whoa, what happened here? This Karatsev had like the tournament of his life. He's like 29 years old.
Wow.
Never done anything. And took some magic pills or something like that down in Australia. Let's talk about a little broadcasting. Fox broadcaster Joe Buck was on the Colin Cowherd show recently. It's a very good show. And Cowherd said that Buck and Troy Aikman on the air sound so relaxed, they appear as if they're sipping from a glass of bourbon in the booth. So he says this to Joe Buck, and Buck responds thusly, quote, "I'll say this. We've had that glass of bourbon in the booth. Although it's not bourbon, it's tequila, splash of Grand Marnier, and grapefruit juice. I went through a couple of years where in the first inning of every postseason baseball game on Fox, I had the runner go get the biggest beer the stadium sold. And I had it sitting there, and I would sip it from time to time to remind myself to relax and have fun. I'm just doing a game." And he goes on to say, "And I brought that over to football. But because Troy is a man of finer tastes, beer somehow became tequila, Grand Marnier, and grapefruit juice. We haven't done it in a long time now, but it was good for a stretch, and I feel like it's a good mental trigger to just chill and remind yourself that you're not refueling an F-16 in mid-flight. You're doing a sporting event, and if you treat it like anything other than that, you're doing yourself a disservice." So what do you think of that? Joe Buck. And he drags Troy Aikman down with him. Like Troy's like,
I don't understand the controversy.
I didn't want you telling this story about drinking in the booth.
But that's not permitted? I mean, I drink during episodes all the time. It sounds like, I don't know. Is this controversial? Like they're not shooting heroin in the booth, right? They're just sipping on, it
would be okay to drink, but not to shoot heroin. Well, right. I think the viewer would like to know that the people broadcasting the game are clear-headed and alert.
Well, it's sports. It's not, you're not reporting on a war. I don't know. I feel like
I don't think any less of Joe Buck,
right,
or Troy Aikman for that matter. I find it interesting that he would just even say, like, what if he were to say, look, we go out for a little toke before the game.
Depends what state you're in.
We pass a little joint. We, at halftime, we get a little buzz on. Smoke a little healer. Maybe a spliff of hash.
Hey, if it relaxes you and you do a great job, and they do a great job, I say fill your boots. Right. Like I don't see the. I think unless you're totally like a straight edge prude or whatever, that I think that's all good. It is sports. Like we do need to check ourselves that this is all fun and entertaining stuff. Like as long as they don't get behind the wheel after they do so, I think it's all good.
Mike, you led me perfectly into the final story.
Oh, great.
Okay, all it takes is one person to make a complaint. One person, one prude, and it all goes to hell in a handbasket. The Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, the CBSC, has concluded that comments made by former Sportsnet panelist Brian Burke breached the Canadian Association of Broadcasters Violence Code during Game 7 of the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs last fall. The CBSC's decision concerns the September 4th broadcast of the Dallas Stars-Colorado Avalanche matchup seen on Sportsnet West. During the game, Burke was asked what he thought about the Avalanche's lack of killer instinct when they had the lead. He replied, quote, "I thought when they went up 3-2, they got complacent. And when a team you're playing is flat, that's when you got to put a boot on their throat and put your full body weight on it."
Oh.
A viewer subsequently complained that the comment promoted hate and violence because it indirectly referenced the May 2020 death of George Floyd, the black man who died after a Minneapolis police officer kneeled on his neck.
Interesting
Sportsnet
context.
argued that the phrase used by Burke was common in the context of sports, and in this case, used metaphorically towards the hockey team under discussion. While acknowledging Burke had made an unfortunate choice of words, the network did not believe the comments had promoted violence or racism.
Right. You know,
The
go ahead.
finish up. The CBSC's English language panel examined the complaint under the CAB Violence Code, which prohibits the promotion, sanction, or glamorization of violence in general, as well as the promotion or exploitation of violence in sports. Don Cherry? For how many years?
Right.
And you're telling me what, they never got a complaint about Don Cherry inciting violence with some of the things he said? Anyway, the panel unanimously concluded that the comment breached Article 1 of the code with the expression, "put a boot on their throat and put your full body weight on it," is not commonly used in sports, and that it, quote, "constitutes a graphic and violent act that could severely harm someone and even possibly lead to their death. This type of graphic, troubling, and violent act should not be endorsed or promoted on air." Shall I go on?
You ready for my take here?
No, I got to finish this.
Okay.
The majority of the panel also found a breach of Article 10.1.
Oh.
That's 2 articles he violated regarding violence in sports because the act described, quote, "is clearly one that is not within the sanctioned limits of hockey. Even if understood as a metaphor, it promotes a level of aggression and violence that could be fatal and well exceeds the customary rough and tumble of a hockey game." The panel also unanimously concluded that the comment did not amount to discrimination or promotion of violence against a racial group, since there was no direct mention of race or the George Floyd incident during the broadcast. Can you believe that these people sat around and make a decision on a complaint from a viewer that thought that Brian Burke's comment, "put your boots on their throat and put your full weight," was promoting violence and perhaps leading to the discrimination or promotion of violence against a racial group?
Okay, the context is everything here, Hebsy, because you're right. The content, face value, this is a great overreaction, and that's just things that you say with regard to sports. But the context, when you brought up the George Floyd incident, and I thought about in the aftermath of that, horrific circumstance where he was murdered by police, that phrase used in that time, I can see it offending people. It's different. The content may not seem like much in a hockey context, but with regards to George Floyd, I can totally see that offending someone. I don't know what your thoughts are. I think the context is everything of this one.
It was an unfortunate choice of words. But the same way when Don Cherry was speaking about Quebecers or Swedes, even though there may not have been in the news, I think there was when Don Cherry was talking about Quebecers in some way, shape, or form. He also referenced what was going on politically. I couldn't tell you the exact situation, but that was similar. He would use inflammatory language that should have been as upsetting as these comments by Brian Burke would have been.
Yeah, I really don't think it's the content on this one. I think it's the context of the time and what was happening.
Well, that's why I'm saying, unless you can tell me
right.
what the context was of Don Cherry's comments about French Canadians or Swedes being chickens or whatever the ridiculous, or Russians, what was going on politically at the time, and could that have been as offensive at that time to a certain group of people as the George Floyd situation? That's context. Right. I don't remember. But I could have been very outraged if I was a French Canadian and I voted for a certain political party or was a supporter of something. And then Don Cherry went on television and said these terrible things about my heritage, my province, and and was inciting violence.
Yeah, no doubt. That was controversial in Quebec. A lot of the anti-French stuff from Don Cherry was highly controversial, but I don't remember any reprimandation there. I don't think they held him accountable. But today they would.
Anyway, Brian Burke is now gone. He's gone to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I guess this is what happens. Now, these things would never occur on this podcast because the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council has no authority over podcasts.
Amen.
And saying that, it's episode 220 of Hebsy on Sports in the books. Thanks to Toronto Mike for production and inspiration. He just recorded his 800th podcast.
That's right.
Which means he's 85 away from Steve Larmer's consecutive game streak. After that, it's Gary Unger's 914 straight. And then the ultimate, Doug Jarvis, 964 consecutive games played.
Wow.
That's an NHL record. So Mike, 164 away from the all-time Canadian record. Hockey record, podcast record, whatever. 800 podcasts. Good for you.
Thank you.
220 for me. That's not bad. Folks, thanks for allowing us into your headspace. Contact me if you're interested in becoming an advertiser on this show. It's becoming very, very popular. And the numbers prove it. And the comments we're getting. So check us out. Subscribe. Tell your friends. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're all over the place. Back with another exciting episode next week. Until then, so long for now. This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Roam Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.
And we're still live on the video streaming, but the podcast is over. Good stuff. Good stuff here.
Lovely. That was good.
Yeah, very interesting. I'll shut down the stream here. Goodbye to everybody. Thanks for listening. And
thank you, everyone.
Daniel Finkler says great episode. A lot of people digging the show.
Good. I'm glad. Excellent.